whenever newbie goes to the gym, their first priority is to look good.
Yeah.
All right. When they gain more experience, they understand that looking good isn't everything. You need to get stronger. So which is why, in my opinion, it is important for us to practice good technique. Practice makes man perfect is not the right quote, in my opinion. Perfect practice makes man perfect, because I believe if you don't practice all of those lifts correctly, if you just lift the weight, if you just do the given program, won't really matter if you're not applying good technique. So I believe the ranking will be recovery first, nutrition second, and training third, because I believe anyone can do the training that is being given, because it is only not even 5% of an entire day. You need to spend more time, into those time zone, like 22, 23 hours outside the gym, and you need to control that aspect.
A Sankarshan Joshi trip.
So I have a Naruto tattoo
Yeah,
here.
yeah, I've seen
And
that. Yeah,
and that's how, like, first time when we met, he said, since you have a Naruto tattoo, since you are a Naruto fan, like, we're gonna be friends. Like,
yeah,
that's how it started. So talking to Aniket was fun. I felt like, I made a new friend. It's not very often where I've talked to a lot of people on the podcast, but very few of them feels like, you made a friend. And even offline also it continues. So
right.
Aniket was uh, someone like that. So your name came up twice in the conversation. One, Aniket told your name, and also Shivi, who was on the podcast, she also recommended your name. So I asked Shivi, like, if you know someone around here, like, who's into the fitness space, or who's really passionate about what they're doing. Then she said, like, your name. I went to your profile and I saw the stuff that you post on powerlifting. Then I thought, I should definitely talk to you. So
I mean, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Sankarshan Joshi trip. On this episode, we have Vedant Pawnikar. He's a powerlifter and a powerlifting coach who's trained over hundreds of people, and he has experience working with athletes, regular gym goers, proper powerlifter athletes. Like, he has a lot of experience. So yeah, that's what actually created excitement to talk to you, honestly.
Firstly, thank you for bringing me on. It's been a long time since I've talked to someone, like on a podcast, something. So yeah, it will be fun.
Yeah. Really appreciated. And we wanted to do this podcast 2 months
2
back.
months, yeah. But my dates weren't there, yeah.
Yeah. But initially, when someone pushes date, right, it's mostly because they're not interested. Because, like, that's a very subtle way of saying, I'm not interested. Let's connect after 2 months. But you got back after 2 months and we stayed in touch. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Firstly.
actually, I was doing. I've said to you earlier that I was in the midst of that powerlifting course that we were launching.
Hmm.
So a lot of time was taken by that, and the next batch is going to start soon as well, which is why I believe that I had to do a lot of work prior as well, so that I can make time for other stuff in this month too.
Hmm.
Which is why I went, because Deva. So
Yeah.
he had his birthday the last weekend, which was like yesterday, the day before yesterday. So which is why I had to travel to Pune, meet him, and get back. Actually, my sister has her birthday on the same day as well, which is why I had to do two cities in the same day.
Damn.
So yeah,
You're a busy man.
kind of. I like to keep myself busy sometimes, because if I'm not, then the mind is a very vicious thing.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
it keeps you, it will take you on the wrong path, and it will make you complacent very easily. So if you keep yourself busy, it's the best thing.
Yeah. I read this quote. There's this angel investor called Naval Ravikant.
Yeah,
You know him?
yeah,
Great. So he has a quote which says, like, you need to be too busy to do your coffee, but also you need to have an uncluttered calendar. So that quote just stuck me, because most of the time we're just lazy, we're just scrolling through something, we're just procrastinating something. So when I read that, like, you need to be too busy to do your own coffee, but you should still have an uncluttered calendar. Like, you need to be clear on what to do. So
I won't. I mean, just to clear things up, I won't really say I'm the most punctual or the most disciplined guy out there. But I have my small comfort zone, small bubble, according to which I do my things. Which is why you won't see myself going too much out there, putting out stuff as Aniket or Deva or else anyone in my comparison. I like my things. I know what works for me, which is why I take things on my own pace.
So you're here for the first time,
Yeah.
and based on my introduction, if I have missed out a few things about who you are, would you like to tell to people like what do you do? And
Okay. Hey everyone, my name is Vedant and I'm a powerlifting coach. I'm a strength coach in general, but powerlifting is my forte, is my niche. I'm a powerlifter myself, and across the past 2.5 or 3 years, since I've started freelancing for coaching, I've come across around 100 athletes that I've trained across all fields except for bodybuilding, which I don't really have knowledge of. I believe that if you need to teach someone, or else if you need to be someone who coaches others, you need to have experience of that particular thing as well. And I haven't had any kind of experience with hard drugs or else bodybuilding, which is why I wouldn't really go to that side. But yeah,
Mhm.
apart from that, calisthenics, powerlifting, strength training in general, street lifting, all of these things, I have had my experience of training those kind of athletes. Also, most of the stuff that I've done is learned on the job. I haven't
Hmm.
had all this kind of experience or else expertise in handling these kind of athletes or else coaching them, but I have learned a lot of things along the way,
Of
right?
course.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically it.
You know why talking to coaches and people who train, I feel like it's very important to talk to them because I've reached a point in my like journey of being fit. So I started out few years back, and then I went through a route of overtraining, and then I went through a route of ego lifting with bad form. So and then injuring myself. Like there was a lot of mistakes that I did. But over the period of time, one thing that I learned is all the fitness influencers that we see on YouTube or Instagram, they don't know what they're talking about. Like fitness is a very knowledge dense field and it's a very experience dense field. So you always like to get your information from people who look good rather than people who know what they're
Right.
talking about, right? Like
Right.
it's a very aesthetic driven field.
Yeah.
So over the period of time I've realized, you know what, like knowledge epitomes aesthetics, because
Yeah.
we don't know what people are doing, like we don't know what drugs they're on. And there are like they have created ways to cheat the system as well, right? Like
Hmm.
now they know they can take stuff which might not come on the
Yes,
steroid.
test.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of things that is out there that we don't know. So hence talking to coaches and talking to people who are uh, like who know what they're talking about, like it really uh like takes your fitness journey to another level, to
Right.
be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, I believe that if you talk to more people who are experienced in this field, you might come across there are different schools of thought when it
Hmm.
comes to how you can be a better coach or else how you can be a better athlete. And I would say to each their own, because you don't really want to criticize someone who's 10 years older than you, having 10 years more experience, but you know that you know some stuff as well, right? So there is always going to be a clash of ideas, or else always going to be a clash of, instances or opinions. But I believe that if we put forward what we know in such a way that there is healthy discussion and there could be something that we all come upon, in conclusion, so that I believe that's the best thing that can happen for a field.
Yeah.
Because even in powerlifting, I believe there are various different schools of thought when it comes to how you should train, how you should coach someone, and that might be happening in the different parts of same states or else all across the country.
Hmm.
But yeah, there are different ways of training.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
would say in particular about powerlifting, because I might be apart from Aniket, I might be the second powerlifter on this stream, so I could speak from my experience in that field. But yeah, I believe that there are different schools of thought, and when there are so many, that proverb, right? Too many cooks spoil the broth.
Yeah.
So you don't really want that. You
Hmm.
want that the information that you have might be, I won't say ethereal, but it won't be very vague. You want
Yeah.
it to be specific.
Yeah. 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 And also, any advice in the field of fitness should be health oriented.
Yeah.
Health is a very broad spectrum, right?
Right.
Like, it's people who have aesthetic body, they have very degraded mental health, and that's not a good place to be in.
Right.
Because to be very honest, even when I was lean, if I eat junk food or something, that would make me anxious, like, will I put on weight or something like that? Like, people who lost a lot of weight will have this at the back of their head,
Might.
right?
Yeah.
So, that is not healthy for people who saw, I might have looked healthy, but that's not healthy, right? I think that's one thing that the fitness space is doing right and wrong at the same time, is that they want people to be fit. At the same time, they're setting a very unrealistic standards, which is messing with people's psychology.
Right. So when you enter the gym, your last priority will be your health.
Hmm.
Right. Whenever someone goes to the gym, whenever newbie goes to the gym, their first priority is to look good.
Yeah.
All right. When they gain more experience, they understand that looking good isn't everything. You need to get stronger, and that's
Yeah.
when they focus more on strength training.
Yeah.
And as more years pass by, they start focusing on health, because that's when, once they start passing 30 years of age, both male and females, they start seeing degradation in their health, in their
Yeah.
bone density,
Yeah.
in their
Yeah.
joints, the pain that they are having in day-to-day life, and all of this stuff. So that's when they start prioritizing health, and don't really give preference to aesthetics, or else
Aesthetics. Yeah.
strength, or else the
Yeah.
numbers on the bar, something like this. So I believe, if you take an approach where you are targeting strength training in general, where you are targeting your joints and your bones to get stronger, and you're focusing on your cardiovascular health as well, I believe that's the best way to train in terms of
Yeah.
getting healthy and stronger.
Yeah. I think aesthetics will follow.
Yeah.
This is something that I've realized, is that everybody wants to have like big muscles, right?
Mm.
And big muscles come when you're getting stronger.
Yeah.
Like when your muscles are strong, when you are strong, you like your mass increases. Like when I was looking at Aniket, right? Comparatively, I'm not a small person. Like when you put me next to someone, but sitting next to Aniket, I looked small.
Yeah. Anyone who looks feel small next to him.
Yeah, and then like his entire like arms, like it's the size of my thigh. Like I
Yeah.
literally told that on the
Yeah.
podcast, and that guy has been lifting heavy for a really long time.
Long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
16, I believe. 15, 16.
Yeah, yeah. At the age of 15, 16, he
No,
started.
no. Till 20. From 2015 or 2016.
Okay. That 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I believe it's been around 6 to 7 years.
Hmm. I was fascinated about powerlifting because I've realized that getting stronger, all the goals that you have will follow. Because getting stronger, it's very, you can quantify it, right?
Right.
Like
Yes.
aesthetic, you can't quantify it. Like even when I was at my leanest, I was still focusing on the parts of my body that I was like, there's still fat here, there's
Yeah.
still fat there. So it's a very subjective element, right? Strength, it's like either you're progressing or you're not. Like it's very crystal clear. So I thought, me focusing on strength would help my fitness journey.
Right.
So yeah, like focusing on strength, that's when I realized, all the most basic lifts, the most non-entertaining, or like which doesn't look interesting,
Right.
those lifts are very foundational. When you say squat is not very glamorous,
Yeah.
because
Not the most appealing lift.
yeah, because it's very hard, man. Like you need to get a lot of things right for you to progress on squat.
Right.
You can't just, but if you take leg press, you can, like even if you're bad at squatting, you can just throw in a lot of weight on the leg press. You can make someone sit on
Yes.
that leg press machine, and you can make it look cool when you're posting it on Instagram.
Even with 2 inches of range of motion.
Yeah. But squat, it's hard.
Yes.
It doesn't look interesting,
Yes. It
but
does.
very important.
Yeah. I believe squat, bench, and deadlift are just parts of powerlifting, but you don't really have to do it. All right. So you mean, if you go on Instagram, you would see a debate about leg press versus squat,
Yeah.
or else leg extension versus squat.
Yeah.
Myself, I was involved in such an example, such a debate. But my point there was that yes, the general population doesn't need to do squat, but they need to do a squatting variation, because there is knee flexion and hip flexion that is involved in that. Okay, and your body needs that, because if you don't use your joints, they will become very rusty, and you will
Okay.
feel that. Okay, which is why, in order to keep them lubricated, exercise needs to be done. So we are doing some kind of hip movement, hip hinge movement, hip flexion, and knee flexion movement. So something like SSB squat, where you're holding the bar like this, or else something like a goblet squat, where you're holding a kettlebell in front of you. When the bar is on the back of, where the back is on your when the bar is on your back, the leverages increase very much. Okay?
Yeah.
Which is why the requirement of bracing, or else the tension that is need to be created in your core, increases a lot.
Hmm.
As the bar moves or else the weight moves ahead or else away from you, उतना कम लगता है हमें
Hmm.
the tension that is required, which is why I believe that if you are someone who is having pain with squatting or else low bar squatting, you can choose different variations to do the same movement, but don't really avoid the movement completely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know why focusing on squatting really changed my perspective? Like squat as a single exercise changed my entire perspective because I realized for you to get stronger, okay, now my aim is to get stronger.
Hmm.
But to get stronger, you need to, like, there's a lot of checklist that
Right.
you need to focus on. First being, do I have the mobility? Like, what's my range, right? Like, that's something that I struggled with because my foot mobility is not that great.
Hmm.
Like, the lower I go,
Hmm.
the more back I move.
Hmm.
So it's like I fall down.
Right.
So I had a very bad ankle mobility.
Hmm.
So then I had to focus on that.
Hmm.
So then I realized my left hip is slightly weaker than my right hip.
Hmm.
So I had this phase of ego lifting. So I wanted to squat like I wanted to put more weight
More
on the
weight.
bar. Though one day I put like max 80 kgs, which was not my body was not capable of pulling that weight up. So I put 80 kgs. When I went down, right, while coming up, naturally my entire weight shifted on the right because my left is weak, right? So then I used my right leg to push off most of the weight. So then I had a very slight pain in my lower back, like the right lower back. So then I realized like this is not happening. Like there's a lot of things I need to focus on. So it humbled me, like squat just humbled me. It's like for you to actually progress, you need to give time. You need to focus on other things rather than focusing on the
Right.
movement.
Okay, I might bust a couple of myths here right now.
Okay.
It's okay. So in my experience, what
Hmm.
I've learned is that in the past couple of years,
Hmm.
mobility as a concept
Okay.
is really being outdated. All
Okay.
right, because we are comparing
Hmm.
the movement or else the situation with something else. For example, you are comparing your
Okay.
squat
Hmm.
where you're not able to hit depth, right?
Huh.
And your weight is shifting back.
Hmm.
It is only because the center of mass is shifting back. It is
Yeah.
not because of your ankle mobility.
Okay.
All right. So what you do, if you only take your hips back
Okay.
and sit down straight, you will be able to squat and hit depth without
Yeah.
improving your ankle mobility.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is only because if you are trying to sit down straight, and given how our leverages are, if you are having longer limbs as compared to our torso,
Yeah. Yeah.
there is a lot torso lean.
Hmm.
All right, there is a lot of angle in our torso
Hmm.
that is there in the low bar squat. Also, you would see that our hips are going back more,
Yeah.
and the difference happens in low bar versus high bar. If you see high bar, you will breathe and brace and you can sit down directly.
Hmm.
But if you put the bar on your rear delts, it will be a little difficult for you to
Yeah.
hit depth. That is only because you will have to shift your center of mass a little more towards the back. The second point that I want to talk about is that the weakness thing is pretty natural. All right. So if you don't get stronger to a certain degree or else to a certain number, whichever that number will be, to get towards your experience, your age, your height, all of this stuff. So let's say you hit 120 or 140 kg on squat, 100 kg on bench, 180 or 200 kg on deadlift. I believe after that point, you might take a look at the weakness that you have on each side, because being a dominant person from one side of our body, we tend to use those muscles more as compared to the other one. And unless and until we have one particular standard of strength, we won't really compare ourselves, because at this point, not just your left side or else your right side is weak, your entire body is weak. So you need to get that entire system stronger, and then you can compare.
The CNS.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I believe if you don't really have the complete car made, you won't really take a look at which tool is
Okay.
not being able to use right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because even Aniket also has a similar perspective on this. Like I was talking about how important is warming up, how important is priming your muscles before
Yeah.
doing the movement, right? So even he also enlightened me with similar information. So I thought that my mobility was bad in terms of ankle mobility. So then I referred Squat University. So even you also
Yeah.
refer Squat
Yeah.
University, right? So he was talking about how your hip is created. For some people, if you move your toes outwards
Hmm.
and then you squat, then you can hit depth.
Yes, you can.
But for some people, keeping it close, they can hit depth.
Hmm.
So then I felt that, if I move my foot outward, then
Mhm.
I'm much more comfortable hitting depth.
Mhm.
So then I started to think, like, is the issue my ankle mobility, or is the
Hmm.
issue of like how my anatomy is
How you are
created?
built,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
how I'm built and how I'm using my build to the best of my ability to do that movement.
Yeah.
So
Have you experienced this, like when you push your knees out, or else, like, tell me, like, were you purposely taking your knees out, or else were you only moving your feet out?
I was moving my feet out. Like, I felt that was very comfortable position,
Okay.
to be honest. So yeah, yeah.
And your knees were going over your toes?
Slightly, I think very slightly it was going, not to a point where it's very evident that it's moving ahead. It
Yeah.
was very slight.
Okay. Usually what happens is that when people try to, okay, so now you said that you move your feet out, right?
Hmm.
Like angle them out. What people usually do is that they push their knees out in order
Hmm.
to hit depth, or else when they go down. And what happens is that a compensatory action that happens in your hips is that when you push your knees out, or else your femurs out, while coming up out of the bottom, your knees will come in as well.
Kevin, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
But which we call knee valgus varum. So that also happens. So that's not an inherently bad thing, but it could be avoided if people stopped, pushing their knees out,
Hmm.
only because that will come up when they're going up.
Hmm.
It come in when they're going up. Something
Okay.
like this.
So I thought that if the side hips sometimes before I go do the squat, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes the most of the weight the lower back takes it.
Hmm.
Maybe because I'm not engaging my core
Core.
properly or something that I didn't know. So I started putting band over my knees, and then I started doing like normal squats before I hit the
Hmm.
actual squat. So then I push my knees outward, right? So that like I have my band on.
Band. Yes.
So that slightly helped me. So I am in a very self figuring out process. Like, I
Right.
don't have a coach and I'm figuring things out myself. So are there any other things that I need to like keep in mind while making progress and not like hitting a sharp low, because I I have had phases where I'm not putting a lot of time warming up or priming my muscles.
Hmm.
I don't do like a very sweaty warm up. I just prime my muscles, like do 90-90s,
Right.
like probably
Warm up your hips in a
yeah,
bit.
yeah, hips here and there, and then do like my shoulder, prime my shoulder. So sometimes what would happen is I take a lot of time doing that, and then that would cut short my workout. So then I thought, let me just go to the workout straight. Then I had a cramp on my lower back. So where do I find my balance? Like, how much time do I spend warming up? How do I warm up right before
Right.
I go lift heavy?
Okay. So usually when we talk about this, we need to figure out for which movement are we priming ourselves up. All right. So
Okay.
if we are preparing ourselves for a squat session, a bench session, or a deadlift session, apart from these three exercises, you don't really need a warm up, which is more specific towards the exercise. For example, if you want to do lat pull down first, you will
Hmm.
also obviously warm up with more lat pull down. You won't do any kind of breathing and bracing stuff, right?
Hmm.
It is not involving that much amount of effort or else stress. So if we are looking at squat, bench press, and deadlift, for squatting and deadlift, most common mistake that people do is that they forget to engage their core, or else they don't really understand what breathing and bracing is. Okay, so in short, breathing and bracing means breathing into your diaphragm. Your diaphragm is basically into your kind of abdomen, or else towards your sternum, but doesn't really go into your stomach, and it is this area basically below your rib cage. What you have to do is that you have to align your rib cage and your pelvis in such a way that the muscles in between those are aligned straight.
Hmm.
Because if either of those, which is we call a stacked position, because your rib cage and your pelvis are neutral. Because if either your rib cage is flared or else more flexed, or else your pelvis is in anti-pelvic tilt or a posterior pelvic tilt, the muscles won't be aligned in a better way. So we want both of them to be neutral, so that you can breathe into this place, into this space, which is called breathing. And the bracing part is where you push against it in 360 degrees of pressure. So you breathe not just you breathe into your diaphragm, but you push not just into your stomach, but through your obliques and back from the lower back as well.
So you
So
hold that breath in.
yes, towards the during the entire movement. So if you're
Hmm.
doing one squat or else one deadlift rep, you will take the breath before you start the rep. You will complete the rep, and let's say after you have completed the rep, after you're locked out at the top on deadlift or squat, that's when you will breathe out.
Okay.
This entire process is called Valsava maneuver, where you are holding your breath into the diaphragm, and this provides a lot of rigidity into your torso, because if you don't do that and the weight is really heavy on your back, you might fall flat as a pancake. So you want that rigidity in your torso to hold that weight.
So you don't breathe through the movement?
No,
Okay.
no, not during the movement. Before you start the movement and after you completed the rep.
Okay. So I sometimes what happens is that when we're lifting heavy, there is a sense of it just blinds you, right? Like when you're lifting heavy, and the lack of breath makes me feel like, maybe am I gonna faint now or something like that? Like it feels that tendency.
Yeah, does it happen on heavy weights or for a lot of weights, for a
No,
lot of reps?
no, heavy weights,
Okay.
right? Also, I feel when I don't hold my breath, I
Hmm.
feel like my entire foundation becomes loose.
Okay.
So it's like if I don't hold my breath
Right.
and I go down,
Huh.
it just feels like, then you enter a panic mode, like
Yes.
where everything else becomes loose,
Right.
and now you just have to push the weight out.
Right, because if you see at the squat, the bottom position is the least advantageous position. All
Yeah.
right, because that's where the body is the weakest, and that's where most people feel. So, and the strongest is where we are the lockout at the
Yeah,
top.
top.
So we need to make sure that at the bottom we are providing as much rigidity to the torso as possible, or through the core, so that we don't fall at the bottom. And once that is done, you will come up easily. But yeah, most of the times, what I see mistake is of the breathing and bracing problem.
Yeah.
In deadlifts also, that's the same thing. Bench press is a whole different topic. I
Yeah.
believe it's the mechanics change completely as compared to squat and deadlift. So yeah, I believe squat and deadlift, the first mistake that people do is breathing and bracing, or the lack thereof. Yeah.
So similar for deadlift.
Similar for deadlift, yes. Deadlift mein, the other thing that people miss out on is basically being patient.
So ladies and gentlemen, what happened was that there was a power cut and we had to pause the recording and we had to come back again and we had to continue the recording after like 3 days.
Right.
3 days we are recording.
So
So
that's
I
when we
thought
could time.
that, I'll wear the same clothes. I'll
Yeah.
ask you to wear the same clothes. And I thought that, it would be a great segue. I thought people won't notice and I can edit it that way.
Right, but now definitely they can.
Yeah,
because they can
But
really
the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I want to tell people what sort of a gem of a person you are. Like, to be very honest.
Okay.
So initially when you told that, when we'll start recording,
Yeah.
we will do the podcast, like few months back when you told me.
In November, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't have a hope that you will get back. But
Okay.
then later when you told me you will get back on this particular date, you were very punctual and you got back on that date.
Okay.
And last time when we were recording and like there's a power cut, like there's a like major mishap, like you were so patient, man, and I really really appreciate you for that. And I wanted people to know that, like, you were so patient, not just with the recording, even post that we were talking for like 2-3 hours continuously, right? Like we were talking hoping that the power would be back and then we
Right.
could resume the conversation. So even then also when we were talking, you were giving me like so much nuggets, like you were giving me tips on how I could improve my workout. So all of this that you did, like, I really appreciate that and I wanted people to know that.
Thank
so
you.
yeah, so now me wearing the same clothes,
It's okay. I just
no
switched it,
point.
but that's fine. I hope people notice it because that would be really cool. You know what would be really cool if we just started the podcast but didn't really mention things.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would
and
have
then
been
someone would comment,
fine.
right. Hey guys, Vedant was in blue, like what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. So where did we left off?
So we were talking about deadlift,
Right.
and like what do people do wrong when they do deadlift? Like how do they go about it?
Yeah, I think the first point that we talked about was breathing and bracing, and we have talked about it in depth, I believe. The second point that I wanted to talk about was people don't really have patience when it comes to really executing the technique that they want to. If you see this deadlift in general, it is of two types. People that compete, they basically perform it in either sumo deadlifts or else in conventional deadlifts. If you look at the technique that people follow, basically in conventional deadlift, you will see that people are more explosive off the floor.
Yeah.
All right. And the people who generally do deadlifts conventional are really big, really huge, and really muscular. If you see conventional in general is a really muscular or else an exercise or a movement in which you can use brute force and perform it. Like even if your technique goes haywire a little bit, it's fine. Okay, because you can muscle it up. When it comes to sumo deadlift, it's completely different, because if you see sumo deadlifters, they might not be the most jacked people out there powerlifting, but they are the people who pay attention to the technique most. They might be the people with the longest arms, longest legs, but they are doing that exercise because it suits their leverages. And by leverages, I mean the ability of their joints or else their biomechanics, their entire body, to do that movement, to perform that movement in the most efficient way possible. And the most efficient way of doing anything in powerlifting is by reducing the range of motion. So as small the range of motion, the better it will be for the athlete to perform that lift and to move as much weight as possible.
So this is from competition standpoint,
Yeah.
right? So this is where we see there are a lot of memes also that go around. Like when you see a powerlifter
Right.
bench pressing, the arch is like so huge that
Yes.
they probably bench like 1 inch or like 2 inches.
Right.
So that
For
as
some
less,
powerlifters,
yeah.
yes, there are exceptions.
So even with like sumo deadlift or all of that, right? Like there is a running joke that
Sumo is cheating.
sumo is cheating or this arch. It's just like people who are just trying to ego lift. They can't do normal and they're trying to do this.
Mhm.
So the main reason you're saying that why people do this is that it's a hack for competition, right? It's
Right.
like the less range of motion you have, the higher chances of you
Lifting the weight.
yeah
Yes, it
is
is.
higher.
But usually the point that I'm bringing here is that the patience point that I'm talking about in conventional deadlift or else deadlift in general, that you will see the people perform across in all gyms, is basically conventional deadlift.
Yeah.
And even if they don't pay attention to the technique, it's fine because they are able to lift that weight up. But after a point of time, these are the people that really deal with back issues and issues with pain in their back because they're not paying attention to technique.
So are
But
you saying that people who do sumo often or who do sumo deadlift in a wrong way, they
no, I'm just talking about in conventional or else in sumo in
okay,
general.
okay,
Okay?
okay, deadlift in
Because
general.
because when we talk about deadlifts, we have to see it from the perspective of its application. If it is going to be used, let's say in making us to lift as much weight as possible, then we can use it in a lift which will be applicable in a competition. But if you don't want to compete, if our goal is not to lift as much weight as possible, then maybe we can use conventional deadlift and use that in our training and use that in such a way that will be beneficial for us to gain strength and get bigger, simultaneously.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sumo deadlift or conventional deadlift, if not for competition,
Mhm.
what's more ideal according to you? Like what's the uh, like best? That's
Right.
like $1 million question. It's like what's that? Leg press squat.
Leg press versus squat, yes,
Yeah, it's like
definitely.
that. Like sumo deadlift versus conventional deadlift. What are your take on that?
I believe, see, the thing is that if even if I say one of
Hmm.
the either, there are
Yeah.
going to be a lot of people that say that you don't really need to deadlifts in your
Yeah.
training,
Yeah.
right? Which is true to a certain extent, because as I said, you pick one movement based upon the activity or else the outcome that you want from that movement. So if your goal is not to lift any weight, or else your goal is not to build your hamstring, glutes, your back, or else your entire body, then don't do deadlifts. You can find better alternatives. Which will give you the same stimulus but without not affecting your central nervous system that much, or
Hmm.
else not fatiguing you that much.
Yeah.
So it totally depends on what your particular goal is. I won't be choosing either of those because it totally depends from person to person.
Nice.
I personally really like conventional deadlift because it really takes a lot out of me. A lot of effort and concentration is gone into it. Also, I would say that I won't say sumo because my body is, or else my physique is more suitable towards doing sumo. So it's something that comes naturally to me.
Okay.
So I would really like to have something that would be challenging to me and I can grow in that.
Hmm.
That would be fun.
So comparatively, your hands are longer or are your legs longer?
Comparatively, if you see, both of them are long in comparison to my torso because that's the only thing I can compare with, right? So if you see, talk about leverages, there are different people with different kinds of leverages.
Hmm.
There are people with short limbs, short arms, longer torso, or else short torso, long arm, long legs like me. So through a variety of people, there are people who are, best suited for doing some kind of lifts. For example, if there is someone who is having shorter arms,
Hmm.
maybe they are better at doing bench press only because their range of motion is smaller.
Hmm.
If someone is having long legs, they might be having an issue with squatting because they have to go that
The
much
range of
deeper.
motion increases.
Yes, but if they are having long arms as well, they can use that same, that same mechanics or the same leverages in sumo deadlift and try to improve that.
Hmm.
So I believe powerlifting is such a sport where you just need to analyze what works best for you, try to maximize in that, but also pay attention to what your weaknesses are as well. Because if
Hmm.
you want to be a good powerlifter, you have to pay attention to your squat, bench press, and deadlift. You can't
Hmm.
just focus on your deadlift or else either lift and think that you will win
Yeah.
competitions. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get into powerlifting, like one
Yeah.
thing that I wanted to say was that I heard sumo deadlift.
Hmm.
You use a lot of your glute, like you need a lot of glute activation.
Mm-hmm.
But whereas for conventional, you don't utilize glutes as much.
Okay.
So I heard this that both conventional and sumo deadlift, they both are beneficial, but they use different set of muscles.
Right.
So they have like you need to incorporate both of that, but you need to schedule that into your workout is what I heard. I don't know how far that is true, but because when we go to sumo deadlift, the muscles that we engage versus for traditional are slightly different, right?
Yes.
So we use a
Okay.
lot of like legs probably
Yeah.
in sumo.
Yeah, if you look at it from perspective of training your glutes,
Hmm.
there are different muscles in your glutes as well. Your gluteus maximus, medius, and smaller muscles surrounding that bigger muscle.
Hmm.
If you pay attention to how you can train your glutes, there are different ways you can train your glutes. Maybe in the lengthen position, in the shorten position, in the mid-range position. There are different ways of training one particular muscle.
Hmm.
All right. If we take a look at the biomechanics, so if you want to get the most out of your glute, any movement, and to activate your glute the most, you need to pay attention to hip extension, because
Hmm.
that will quote unquote squeeze your glutes the most. Okay. And if you want to make sure that the most range of motion which will lead to more hypertrophy is being done, you will have to take your hips that much farther from the midline or the bar to get the active range of motion that
Hmm.
longer. All
Hmm.
right. So if you compare from the side way where your hips go the farthest back,
Hmm.
because the farther back it goes, the more work it will have to do to
Hmm.
come to the
Yeah,
midpoint.
yeah.
Right. So if you take a look from the side at sumo deadlift, or else at conventional deadlift, or else at hex bar deadlift, or else
Hmm.
trap bar deadlift
Hmm.
that we
Hmm.
see, or else even RDLs,
Hmm.
where you are trying to lower the weight, but you are just the goal basically is to push your hips as much back
As
as
far as
possible
possible.
without touching the bar on the ground.
Hmm.
So if you take a look at all of this, you might see that the RDLs, or else comparatively your conventional deadlift might be having the longest hip position as compared to the mid bar.
Okay.
So in my opinion, that is the best possible case to train your glutes.
Okay. Okay.
If
Okay.
you pay attention to your sumo deadlift technique, the obviously your glutes are going to be used, because at the end of the movement you are going to do hip extension. But in order to get the bar up, your adductors, your quads, and your hamstrings to an extent
Hmm.
are a lot
Hmm. Hmm.
used
Hmm.
as compared to conventional,
Yeah.
where your upper body comes into play as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I believe it completely depends on what your goal is and how you can use that exercise. I believe
Okay.
sumo, like using sumo for a glutes perspective, might not be the best case.
Not
But
the
yeah,
most effective.
something like a dumbbell RDL, or else barbell RDLs, or even
Okay.
conventional in general, will really train your hamstrings, your glutes, and your entire body, in my opinion.
Okay.
Those are some
Okay.
really good keys for building a solid base.
Yeah. You know, the reason I spoke with Aniket also on our podcast regarding this, and even at the start of the podcast also, I was telling about how my perspective changed uh, in terms of like lifting weights to lifting stronger weights, like getting stronger.
Right.
Sorry, lifting heavier weights and getting stronger. So this concept of powerlifting, right? It looks like this is a competition,
Sport. Yeah.
and that competition aspects like takes away like from people to go lift more heavy weights and get stronger, right?
Right.
Because like that would be like one hindrance that like since I'm not competing
Mm-hmm.
and powerlifting is about competing,
Right.
that takes away the incentive of getting stronger, right? So I think that the core exercises of a powerlifting competition, the like those are like very crucial exercises, right?
In a
Don't
way,
you think?
yeah. I believe that if you look at those exercises, squat, bench press, and
Hmm.
deadlift, those are the exercises where your the compound exercise that we talk about
Yeah.
traditionally,
Yeah.
where your most of the body's muscles are being
Yeah.
used.
Yeah.
All right. if you take a look at the markers of progress, what would that be? Either it would be the work that you do in the gym, and you would note that, and you would make progression from week to week. We could call that progressive overload, or else periodization, something like this, where we are actively trying to get stronger from week to week. That is going to happen inside the gym,
Yeah.
right? One of the markers of doing that is to notice your strength, like on which exercises, how much heavier you're going from week to week, or else what aspects, or else what variables you're adding, either set, number of reps, or else the rest
Okay.
period. Okay. But if you look at squat, bench, and deadlift, it is some exercise or else some movement like which, in which you can track how much weight you're adding from week to week, or else from block to block, which we consider like 4 to 5 months block, week block, which we call a small mesocycle or microcycle, basically in coaching terms. But to keep it simple, it is a good marker for strength, where you can see that from block to block, or else from a perspective of coach, you are seeing that there is steady increase in that number. If you take a look at the other things that we can use for markers of progress, it could be a physique, it could be a body fat percentage, body composition, how much muscle mass you have, all of these things. But if you see the progress on these, it might be very slow as compared to the weight on the bar. Okay. So if there is someone who is starting this sport new, or else just want to get a gist of how these things are being done, adding those numbers on that bar, or else looking at those changes in their physique, might be a good sign of encouragement for them to try to grow more, or else try to push yourself a little bit more into the gym. Not necessarily you have to compete or else be better than someone else.
Track progress.
Yeah, you can always be better than someone that you were yesterday, right?
Yeah,
Which is the best marker of comparison. So I believe that powerlifting, or else just squat, bench, and deadlift, or just strength training in general, should be taken up by as many people as possible, because that will not just help them in their confidence, but will help them in their physique, their mental health,
Of course, yeah.
their physical health, other things.
Also, the thing that you said, that over my past week to this week, I might have added few pounds on the bar, but that might not instantly reflect on my physique, right?
Right.
So the thing that you saying, that out of all the markers of progress, like we like increasing the weight on the bar, it's very visible progress.
Yes.
And it's a quantifiable progress.
Yes.
So we striving for that, in a way it's striving to get stronger, right?
Yes,
Like
definitely.
that being your goal. And a lot of people, they want fancier exercises rather than sticking to few things and then getting stronger.
Which is why CrossFit works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the CrossFit, when I hear like good people in fitness space talk, one thing that they give credit to CrossFit is bringing
Variability,
exposure to,
in my opinion.
like probably deadlift or like squat, like these exercises, right?
Yeah.
In a way they made those exercises look cool, like
Yeah.
now people want to go like do more of that. So in that sense, like we need to give credit to
Yeah, in a way you can, but I believe the WODs, or the workout of the days that they have, might be little critical in terms of if people are not used to that, the rate of injury, or else the risk of injury might increase. Like even if you want to do pull-ups, might not, why do keeping pull-ups? Just do regular pull-ups, right? The goal should not be there to get as many pull-ups as possible, because that's not what the exercise does. What the exercise does is try to hit those targeted muscles, and I believe the more tempo you have, the more control you have around that movement, the better it will be. Like even if you see, even if you take a look at squat, bench, and deadlift, even if our goal is to move the weight in as small space as possible, to do it as fast as possible, we don't really do that movement in a really hurry, or in a rush,
bad form.
Yeah, or else in bad form, because if that's when the point of patience comes into play, right? We want to really slow down the movement and understand how it is working around us. Because if you don't really pause at the bottom of a squat and understand how it feels on your body, on your back, what the weight feels at the bottom, you won't be able to really create the tension that is required. Which is why using things like tempo squat, tempo bench press, and eccentric control movements in deadlifts really helps you create that mind muscle connection.
Okay, so you're saying that, can you elaborate more on the pausing at the bottom of the squat?
Yeah.
How is that going to help someone? Like you were saying that that helps build mind muscle connection, or being at the bottom, like you need to observe how your body is
Okay.
taking that load.
Yeah.
Like Can you just elaborate
Yeah,
more on
sure.
that?
Okay, first let me just put a disclaimer that I'm talking things from perspective of powerlifting. All right. If someone listening to this is a general gym goer, yes, you can incorporate squats and you need to understand the things that I'm going to talk about, but you don't necessarily have to do squats into a workout. All right. This the idea of using squats, as I said, is a marker of strength and is a movement which any new gym goer should do,
Hmm.
right? Because it is going to use all of those muscle in your body, in your lower body. Okay. But if you are someone who is not able to do it or else who doesn't enjoy doing squats, there are better variations. Okay.
Okay.
Now that when we talk about squats, the technique that we are talking about is firstly breathing and bracing,
Hmm.
which we touched upon in the deadlifts part
Hmm.
before our electricity got out, right? So the deadlift mechanics, the breathing and bracing mechanics are used here as well, where you really try to, align your rib cage and your pelvis in such a way that the muscles in between those, your abdomen muscles, really align and they are not crooked in any way. Then
Hmm.
you try to breathe and brace, breathe into your diaphragm and brace and try to push into 360 degrees of
Hmm.
diaphragmatic pressure that you have to create. Like I explained it to you in the last time that we talked, the purpose of a belt. The purpose of a belt is to really cue you where you have to breathe. It's
Hmm.
not really to protect your lower back, or else you don't really have to wear that belt really tight, because it will defeat the purpose of wearing that belt.
Okay.
The belt that we use is to really make you sure that you are breathing into your diaphragm, into your abdomen, and you are not chest breathing. Your chest is not
Okay.
rising. And the point that I was talking about at the bottom of the chest, bottom of the squat, I'm sorry, is because most of the lifts that are failed are at the bottom. People will
Hmm.
go down and they will lose the entire tension that they have built.
Yeah.
Okay. So the entire idea of pausing at the bottom or else using tempo where we really slow down the descent, like how they're coming down.
Hmm.
Most people when they try to squat, we use a term in powerlifting called sandbagging, which means that they just drop their squat. They
Yeah.
don't breathe and brace,
Yeah.
they just drop. And they try to push it back up when you will see that their knees are coming in, their neck is above their bar,
Bar.
and they really try to push hard as much as possible. And that won't really happen if they really paid attention to the basic concepts of breathing and bracing and maintaining that tension. So yeah, so basically if you really
Hmm.
slow down the movement and try to hold that position into the bottom, it will make you think that the entire bar is going to fall upon you. Then you will be compelled to create that tension and hold it there, because in case you just leave
Hmm.
it, you will fall. And you can't really start that doing at the 1 rep max, right? You will have to gradually progress onto that movement.
Yeah.
You can start from somewhere from 50-60% of your 1 rep max and slowly gradually add weight week to week as you get
Hmm.
stronger.
Yeah. And this is something that I realized on my own. I was also the terminology that you use, sandbagging. I think I was also doing that in a way where uh, I used to lift a lot of weight back then, but I was sandbagging in a sense where I'm like, how do I get this thing off me first?
Right.
Like your main focus is, am I lifting this weight or not, rather than I'm able to do this properly, right?
Yes.
One thing that I figured it on my own was that I was having a lot of lower back stiffness
Hmm.
when I was squatting, right?
Hmm.
And I felt that there was a lot of weight putting on my right side.
Hmm.
So then I realized that something is off and I don't know what it is.
Hmm.
So then I thought, with less weight, I started doing like pause at the bottom squat.
Hmm.
So when I was doing that, then I was like, then I realized, okay. Then I thought, I'm using more of my core now, like taking a pause, and that actually helped me reduce pain and also like my lower back stiffness, right?
Right.
That everything reduced
Right.
because now also my mindset when I'm going down, it is not that I to escape this weight off.
Right.
Like now I have to live with this weight at the
Right.
bottom, so I'm very cautious with with the amount of weight that I carry also.
Right.
Like that actually truly exposes you to your weakness. I think that's what people want to avoid. That's why they do this sandbag thing.
Yeah. Maybe. Just to touch upon the point that you were saying, in terms of you were feeling one of your part of your body take over, and
Yeah.
that usually happens.
Compensate that.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like we talked about last time. I believe that when your technique goes off, your body is not in the homeostasis, which is the most ideal condition for it, right? So it goes into a mode of panic, and it switches back to what feels the most best. Okay.
Hmm.
So which is why, in my opinion, it is important for us to practice good technique. Okay, practice makes man perfect is not the right quote in my opinion. Perfect practice makes man perfect, because I believe if you don't practice all of those lifts correctly, if you just lift the weight, if you just do the given program, won't really matter if you're not applying good technique. If the intention of doing each and every rep is not to do it to the T, you're doing it wrong, right?
Damn.
So I believe that's something that powerlifters really pay attention to. So yeah, I really got off track and forgot what I was saying.
No, I think that's a very profound thing that you said. It's not that, practice makes man perfect. It's also practicing perfectly.
Technique, yeah.
And that, yeah, I think that is such a profound statement. If you're in the gym and that, I mean, like, where, like, what exactly are you focusing?
Right.
Like, that thing shifts, right? Like,
Right.
when you are, so it's like you're practicing a dance movement,
Mm-hmm.
it's not majorly about like how fast are you doing that or not. Like, when you're practicing it, like, you pay a lot of attention to form, all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I started thinking exercise in general more in that aspect, like focusing more on the form. And like, it's not about how I'm lifting, sorry, how much I'm lifting. It's more of like, to the best of my ability, how much I can lift,
Right.
not just lifting.
Right. Yeah.
Best form, all of that.
Yeah. I believe that as we practice good technique, and as I was saying that in state of crisis, our body will
Hmm.
go back to
Yeah,
what was the
yeah.
best for us. So in case your technique goes off,
Hmm.
your lower back or else any of your other aspects won't take over if
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
been practicing good technique till now.
Hmm.
So even if one thing, as in your case, you were sandbagging, basically you were not breathing or bracing or
Yeah.
creating any tension. So in that case, you were going down, but in order to lift that weight up,
Yeah.
none of those muscles were strong as much as your right, let's say, glute
Yes.
or else your
Yes.
right leg. Okay. So that was trying to push it to the T, or else push the movement and complete the movement,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I believe if people pay attention to the technique, practice good technique, and try to engage all those smaller muscles as well, where we don't really pay attention to. For example, if we are doing sumo deadlift, all right, people do heavy sumo deadlifts or else sumo deadlift for a lot of reps. People do bench press really heavy, a lot of reps. In sumo, they feel pain in their hip flexors, in their adductors near the knees. In bench press, they feel pain in their elbows, they feel pain in their shoulders, something like this. And same happens with a squat as well. They feel pain in their knee and in their lower back or else in their hips.
Hmm.
All of this stems from a point of muscle weakness. Because during this bigger muscle, during this movements, the bigger muscles, like for example, in a squats, the quads, the glutes, the hamstrings will take over, the back will take over while doing the movement. But the smaller muscles like our hip flexors, our adductors, which are also used in sumo deadlift as well, won't be used in that same particular effect. So due to the stress that is being placed upon them, in response they give this pain.
Hmm.
That is only a way of them telling to say us that they are
Back off.
getting recovered from it in a
Yeah.
way, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they are not really prepared for that, so in a way they are trying to say us to back off, but they are not strong enough. So the next time that we try to attempt the same weight, they might be strong, but in that instance,
Hmm.
after that session, people might feel that pain,
Yeah. Yeah.
and which is very common. So the direct solution to that is to take a look at what muscle is paining and try to train that in the eccentric and the concentric or else in the isometric
Hmm.
position
Yeah.
as much as
Yeah.
possible.
Now my motto of working out or in general is, I mean, of course, health is like a bigger umbrella,
Yeah.
but to be healthy is one of the reasons. Another thing is, how can I get stronger? Like, how can I get stronger? How can I lift more weight?
Right.
And all the things that you said, right? Like assessing your weaknesses, assessing the form, assessing the parts that are not assisting you in the bigger movements.
Right.
So knowing all of these things mm, will help you get stronger, right?
Right.
So ever since my focus was to get stronger and sustain there and get even more stronger from there. It's not that one day I just lift 100 kgs and then like even if I can or not, like by luck, if sheer luck, if I can lift it, that's not what I want, right? Like, I want my strength sustained and I also want it to grow. So when my focus was that, then I started looking into all of this. Had if my focus was to get ripped,
Right.
I would be thinking about how many calories did I burn, or
Right.
like how many my focus is honestly not on getting stronger. When I started putting my whole and soul energy into that, then I started looking into this. So according to you, why is it important to, I am assuming that you are on same page with
Right.
me on this.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, according to you, why is it important to focus on getting stronger at the gym?
Right. So one of the points that we just mentioned was that particular aspect of marker of strength or marker of progress that is definitely visible for each and everyone. Like any newbie that will go to the gym, regardless of their age, regardless of their gender, their weight as well, they will see some kind of progress once they start doing the squatting, benching, and deadlifting movement. Right. Again, the squatting and benching and deadlifting movement doesn't have to be a competition specific, a powerlifting specific, powerlifting squat, powerlifting bench press with an arch, or a deadlift. Okay, it doesn't have to be that. When we talk about squat, bench, and deadlift, it consists of movements having hip flexion and knee flexion, where you are basically, a squat is where your pelvis moves down, and a hinge movement, also deadlift, is where your hips move from back to the front. You just need to involve those muscles and do that particular movement, which is going to increase the hypertrophy, the strength, the bone density of those muscles and joints around it, which are involved in that particular movement. So basically, a squat, bench, and deadlift. But that again doesn't have to be your competition specific. Like for example, if people are having back pain, one of the best exercise that they can do, or else they can substitute it for squats, is heel elevated goblet squats. So basically what you do is that from doing a low bar squat where the bar is on your rear delts, you switch the bar to a goblet, which is a kettlebell or else a dumbbell. All right, just hold it in front of your face and try to breathe in your diaphragm as much as possible, and you will feel that it is relatively much easier for you to breathe into that position, and basically create that mind muscle connection, that you are able to feel your lower back as well. And all you have to do is just sit down and sit back, come back up, and that basically mimics the squat to a T. Those involve your a lot of stress is being placed on your core muscles in that movement, and it takes stress away from your lower back and your quads. So you will feel a lot better while doing that movement. So you can incorporate the incorporate the the mechanics of squats without doing the squats
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
Something like
So
this.
you're saying that it's not to avoid the movement.
Yes.
It's to figure out a way, like your own way of doing that
Doing that.
movement. And once you feel comfortable, once you feel like, like your lower back or like all the parts that are getting used to this movement, then you can slowly probably try,
Yes.
like, putting
A
bar
more
on your back.
difficult position.
Huh.
Something like this. I believe that as you transition, like if I give someone a barbell and tell them to do those movements, might not be possible, and he
Yeah.
might not even enjoy doing that, right?
Yeah.
So you have to tell the person, or else ask that athlete or a client to really get a sense of how they're doing that movement, and they really want to be one with the movement. Because if you take a perspective of someone in the gym, even if they are not new, there are a lot of people in the gym, right? And it is very difficult for someone to concentrate. There's music playing, there are people going from the front of our eyes, there is people are recording videos, people are recording TikToks, a lot of things are happening, right? So some people use music in their headphones, or else they use pre-workouts, stimulants, ammonia, all of these things to get them into the zone, right? That works for different people, might not be working for me, because I'm someone who works really, in for me to get into the zone, it's not really that difficult, because once I'm in the gym is my zone. All right, so it doesn't take me much, even if people are playing any kind of music or just running in front of me, that's okay. But if you really think about it, and if you really focus on your technique, focus on what you are doing into that, that 1 hour, it's really important for you to in perspective, in terms of how you are involving your muscles into that movement, and what you're getting out of that 1 hour. It should not be like you are distracted, like
Yeah.
out of 18 hours, out of 24 hours, you're distracted on your phone for 10 to 12 hours, whatever the timeline might be, and when you get in the gym, you're distracted again. We don't want that, right?
Yeah.
That 1 hour should be concentrated AF in
Yeah.
terms of whatever you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Also, another thing is that from the past, I mean, post lockdown is when I got serious about working out, and ever since I got serious, I've been working out alone. And the thing, like one good thing about working out alone or in a very non-glamorous environment, maybe it could be home or could be your apartment gym,
Hmm.
where there are less people watching, you have less incentive to impress people.
Right.
So I think when you don't have incentive to impress people, I
Hmm.
think then you will do it for the right reason, and
Right.
also you will choose the right weight.
Right. I mean, it totally depends on the personality of the person, right?
Of
If
course.
there is someone who really likes to, you know, that person won't really say that I really like to show off to people, but they get a sense of achievement in doing that without even saying it. Or
Yeah.
else there are people like you or Aniket who really like to train alone. Even me myself, there was a point till when, like, till I believe 16, 17 or 18, till when I was not doing powerlifting. I was just hanging out with my gym bros, training and having
Yeah.
fun for the pump.
Yeah.
But once I was bit by this iron bug of powerlifting, then I got into a zone of training alone and paying attention to that squat, benching and deadlifting a lot more. And that
Mm.
was really, I believe, a precursor of what got me into the coaching aspect of things. I believe that even I might not be the best athlete out there, or else I might not have a lot of medals, but I believe that I have a really good understanding of this movements of how
Mm.
it feels to do that particular thing, because I have done it for, I won't say a lot of time, but I have done
Yeah.
it for quite some time and asked other people to do it as well. And that initial phase of you know trying to perfect that movement and asking my friends to do it as well really helped me understand how things work for different people.
Yeah. 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 I think that is a very crucial aspect, because what for you to coach, you need to have knowledge, also you need to have understanding of people, and you need
Right.
to have understanding of wide variety of people in terms of movement.
Mhm.
When I say the second point, when I said, I meant the psychology of people,
Right.
because not everyone is motivated for the same thing, right? Like not everyone, someone might be at the extreme, right? Like
Right.
where they're like, I want to do more, I want to do more, and then you
Right.
have to ask them like, bro, like chill. And then
Yes.
there are other people who are like, do I have to do this? And then it's like you need to have an understanding of wide variety of like psychologies, right? Like you
Right.
need to understand, okay, what is this guy's motivation,
Mhm.
or maybe what is her motivation. Also in your Instagram, which I shout out your Instagram, like I recommend people to go follow it, like where you put pe- the people that you coach, you put their progress out there, right?
Yes.
It's not necessarily just men that are
Mhm.
trying to get stronger.
Yeah.
Equally, like women, like everyone, regardless of the gender, they're doing the same movement, and women are kicking some ass, man. Like I
Yeah.
see the weight that I'm lifting, I'm like, I wish I can lift this weight.
Yeah.
And you are not just working with wide variety of people, you're working with athletes, and you're also working with people from across genders. Like, what does it feel, firstly, to be doing that? And secondly, what are your observations in terms of generic people? Like,
Firstly, I would say that I'm really grateful to be at this point. To be honest, I have come across a lot of people who, who hold me in high regard in this sport. There are people who might not be doing that, and but the people that
hmm,
I've come across really respect me, and I haven't really expected that, in this small amount of time that I have had, either on the internet or else in this sport in some way or the other. So firstly, I'm really grateful with the for the athletes that I'm working with. As you talked about the female athletes, a lot of female athletes have enrolled in last year with me, and with the team as well, the team strength mob. So shout out to them as well if I haven't talked about them already. So there's Coach Deva, Coach Aniket, and myself. So Coach Deva and Coach me basically. We have a lot of female athletes have enrolled, under us in the past 6 months or a year or so, and going forward into the next 2 months, a lot of them are going to compete as well. So it
okay,
will be fun to see. So there are around 9 or 11 weight classes in a female category, I believe, and we might have an athlete in each of them. So that
okay,
might be a thing that might happen. So it would be interesting to see. So yeah, I believe that this new wave of female lifters coming out of in the Indian scene as well is really essential, because it is only going to motivate more female athletes, gym goers, or else just enthusiasts to come across and start lifting more, because it is only going to help them, in any way possible, physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, a lot of ways. So yeah, I believe. What was the second question again?
so my second question was like, what are your generic observation in terms of people, right?
Hmm.
Like your observation as to what do they do right or what do they do wrong. Like, because when you started out, right, like
Hmm.
when I started out, there are so many mistakes that when I look back, I'm like, damn, like how
Hmm.
did I do this? But over the period of time, even now I'm still learning, and like may probably few years down the line, the concepts that I believe are true now might turn out to be like,
Outdated.
yeah, I
Hmm.
might evolve out of that. I might
Yes.
unlearn few things as well. So if someone would have guided me, telling that, this is good or this is bad, like there is a behavioral pattern of people who start out, right,
Hmm.
probably for the right reasons or wrong reasons. So from your perspective, I was just curious as to what did you observe in people, like when they start out lifting, what do they do wrong
Hmm.
or what do they do right?
Right. I believe that most, like we can ask this question to any person, any new good into the gym, like, and we would like just get them into the gym and ask them that who might be the most knowledgeable person into the gym, and they
Hmm.
might point to the most buffest, the most ripped person, right? And they might think that that person knows the most, but that might not be the case. And I believe that's the first and foremost thing that happens, is that people don't know where to get the information from, which is why a lot of miscommunication, misinformation, and misconception basically spreads a lot of things. So I believe that first of all, people need to get educated in terms of the trainers that are into the gym. They need to be more educated. People who are giving their courses out there right now, certification, all that, are teaching people that carbs are bad. They are teaching people that glucose is bad. All of these things should not be happening. That is really wrong, because if you are into a sport like powerlifting, carbs are really essential for you. All right, you can't be doing keto and expect you to perform your best. All right. So I believe that a lot of misinformation spreads from the gym itself, from the people who are perpetuating all of these things to the new
Yeah.
client. So yeah, I believe it starts from them. But also, once the any gym goer goes into the gym, spends a little time, and if that person gets interested into the sport or else get interested in just lifting, they will try to learn, and they
Hmm.
will in the coming years will realize what is wrong, what is right. So in my opinion, the best thing to do is just go through all of those things,
Yeah, just
since
hang in there.
experience is the best teacher, right?
Yeah.
So it will teach you a lot of things, and it will make you sure that this thing is wrong, this thing is right. Maybe you can start seeing things in gray as well. But yeah, a lot of things in in the lifting community starts from this particular misinformation that spreads.
Yeah. First being that uh, that, that that's a very interesting point, because the Buffest guy might not be the guy with the most
Most knowledge,
knowledge,
yeah.
because like he might be on steroids, you might or you might not know that,
Yeah.
and maybe his genetics has worked well for him where he does some stupid movement, maybe his body reacts well to that, like could be any factor, right?
Right.
Maybe whatever has worked for him, there is 100%, like there's majority of the chance that that might not work for you.
Yes.
So that being the first one, second being that like just hang in there.
Right.
That, that's what you're trying to say, right? Like
Yes.
just continue what you're doing.
Yeah, I believe that even if people go out there and try to
Hmm.
learn as much as possible from for
Hmm.
themselves, by themselves, is
Hmm.
the best thing possible.
Okay.
Like, even if you go and hire a coach, the coach is going to tell you things. But if you try to read those things by yourself, like I did, like other coaches did for themselves, that will give you an understanding that no coach will ever tell you.
Okay. So you're pushing people to
Get
gain knowledge,
yeah,
get educated. Yeah,
by
that's a
themselves.
yeah. So how to do that?
Yeah. That really brings me to the point of the content that we put out there, right?
Hmm.
So we can be a precursor, or else the post that people see, or else if you
Hmm.
come across Deva Khure, you might come across his powerlifting or else powerlifting related videos. And one video some lifter might see somewhere in India or somewhere in the world, and they might be inspired, or else they might be intrigued by one word
Hmm.
that we have mentioned, and they might Google it, because right now it is very easy for us to get information, right? Like, we right now are living in the best generation possible from the past, at least,
Hmm.
right? We have medicine, and but we, at the first and foremost, we have Google, which enables us to get the knowledge of all the books ever in
Hmm.
history. So which only makes us, right now there is AI as well,
Yeah.
and I haven't really dabbled into AI thing with powerlifting, but I believe that there might be some there might be some future thing coming up with
Yeah.
AI as well. But yeah, I believe that even if you Google the best sources of information when it comes to lifting, or else things that you should know before going into the gym, you will see videos like things I knew before I started lifting, all
Hmm.
of these things. So I believe spending some time doing your own research will really help you a lot in this
But I'll
thing.
tell you what the problem with having a lot of information out there is,
Mm-hmm.
that there is a lot of information out there. Like,
Oh
I
yeah,
think that
right.
being the good thing is, like, on the contrast, it's a absolute bad thing, because you don't know which is the right information, right? I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a guy who wrote an entire book, or like who spent a lifetime doing this cold therapy, that like if the players are injured,
Mm-hmm.
they put ice, right?
Ice pack,
Like
yeah.
ice pack, all of that. And he spent a lot of time doing that, and he wrote a book also.
Okay.
Few decades down the line, he actually debunked his own book. So
Okay.
he's saying that whatever he thought,
Hmm.
that ice packs and all of that would help,
Hmm.
he's saying that is not the solution. Like, if you have a problem with movement is the solution.
Right.
Like the physiotherapy, all of that, right?
Right.
I'm like, all the people who believed that,
Who is this guy?
I honestly, I don't know the
That
name. In case
honestly,
if
that's a
I
legend right there, because
Yeah,
going back and correcting your own statement, or else correcting your own opinion, it takes a balls.
yeah,
Okay, it's
yeah,
not easy.
yeah. And also, you spent a lifetime on it. Like, you
Right.
spent decades doing that. And so this is the thing that I felt that, okay, take information, but one thing is that don't marry that information, that,
Right.
like, don't consider that to be the Bible.
Yeah.
Like, there might be better information out there.
Right.
And
There's a word for it. Don't become dogmatic with your opinions or else your
yeah,
views,
yeah,
because like the other day we were talking about the old school power lifters, or else the
yeah,
old school lifters in this country, or else in general as well. They have this sense of not changing with times that we discussed.
yeah,
So I believe that if people like those change with time, because the things that they were using, not necessarily steroids, but the way that they were programming, or else planning their workouts, that 20 30 years ago, might not be the same, or else might not give the same effect right now, because there
hmm,
are better ways of doing things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But one thing that actually helped me is finding out essential movements. Like, what are essential movements for our human beings?
Right.
Like, that would directly get translated into real world scenarios. Like, this is one thing that actually incentivized me to look into non-glamorous exercises,
Hmm.
which, like, let's say squat, it's not glamorous
At
unless
all.
you create reasons in your head and you make it glamorous. It's not innate glamorous. So this squat, it's a very essential movement, right? In terms of, we have naturally been sitting in that position, and over the period of time we lost connection to that particular thing,
Yeah.
maybe picking something on the floor. So in my opinion, so far where I am at is that I have simplified things for
Hmm.
myself. I'm like, one thing is get stronger at what?
Hmm.
So that I actually have clearly defined. Like, let's say deadlift, squat, bench, shoulder press, I do row.
Right.
Anything that I do, most of like my major workout, it's barbell.
Yes.
And probably the next day, I might do, ever since, like, the last time we spoke, ever since you recommended me few tips, so then I started incorporating other things as well on the, like, probably today if I do like all barbell full body, next day I probably use like kettlebells or like dumbbells, stuff like that.
Hmm.
That wouldn't put a lot of strain on my body, but just maybe try out different movement to send again, like, muscle building signals again, probably.
Right.
So like, in my that's what I did. Like, what are the essential movements of all the informations? What are the common things that people are trying to tell,
Hmm.
which are not very polar opposite?
Okay.
So, like, the deadlift, squat, or like bench,
Hmm.
overhead press, or like barbell rows, or uh, all of these exercises, right? Like, maybe pull-ups or
Right.
stuff like that, right? Like,
Hmm.
these exercises that I've heard most of the people, and also whom I believe to be true source of information, they all recommended this. So then I thought, what, let's me not complicate this. I have limited my movements, and I thought, let me just get better at these movements in
Right.
terms of form and stuff like that, right? Like, that has simplified stuff for me. Like, now I'm not like, okay, I thought this was true. The next week I'm like, oh god, like, it's not true.
Right.
So with this whole liver king fiasco also, right? Like, do you know liver king?
No.
So there's this guy who became like humongous
I know
star.
the name, but I'm
Yeah.
not aware of the thing.
So this guy was pushing this ancestral tenets,
Okay.
philosophy, and he was pushing few supplements also. He is like, we need to go back to the roots. He used to eat raw meat, that's
Yeah.
hence Liver King.
Liver King, yeah.
So he used to eat raw meat, and he he was jacked, dude, like jacked to the core. And that dude, he used to go on every show, every podcast shirtless.
Yeah.
And he promoted himself a lot, and he was just out there everywhere. You cannot, you couldn't unsee that guy. And then everywhere he was asked, are you on steroids? He said no, 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 no. And a few days later, few weeks, few months later, he put a video on his own channel apologizing to people that he's telling that, you know what, I
No,
am.
but I believe that some of his emails got leaked, right?
Emails got leaked, like how he wanted people to, like he wanted to reach a certain following
Okay.
in certain duration of time. He's like, next 1 year I want this many people.
Okay.
Like those sort of content got leaked. And then he's like, I apologize guys, I am on steroids. He
Okay.
says I am. He
Like,
says that. And also he says he gives some bullshit woke reason that justifies, like he has created a reason. He's saying, you know, so many people are committing suicide, and so many people die every day, and there's a mental health issue,
okay.
and I'm trying to promote workout, like this thing is going to help those people, and I'm doing this for them.
Right.
Like he gives this some like bullshit woke reason at last. The reason why I bought him up is that now I don't fall into traps like that. Like now if there's new information that comes, I don't drool all over that information.
You might be a little skeptical at first.
Yeah, skeptical. Also, I'm like, okay, like let me just, since I already have my things, let me just get better at this. In the meanwhile, that thing will also progress.
Right.
So even with supplements also, right? Like so many things. One of my friend told me about anabolic window.
Acha.
He was like, anabolic window, all of that.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is just gimmick, right? They're just trying to push supplements out, all of that. So in like all, like I've been through all over the world in terms of information.
Right.
And then I've come to this point that supplements, it's better to take as less as possible unless necessary. Whey
Right.
protein, creatine, like these are the two things that I take. And in terms of workout, also simplified. I'm like, there's so much noise, but at the end of the day, like these are the things that just
Right.
stay.
Exactly. You need to know your meat and potatoes, right? For example, let's talk with training first. Training in terms of, as we talked about, what a goal should be. Let's say you have your first priority is your health, okay, which is why you're working out. Because if you are not active, your muscles might go into what we call a dystrophy or atrophy. All right. So we don't really want that to happen. We don't want our joints to become cranky and achy. We want them to be lubricated, which is why we need to do the work, which is why the training aspect comes into play. Now if we want to see the carryover of those exercises into our daily life as well, as you were talking about, when we talk about squats or as deadlift, it's just sitting down to take a dump. If you like look at the Asian population, I saw this I guess on the Joe Rogan podcast, I believe, that the Asian population usually has a lot more ankle mobility as compared to the people in the West, only because we are taking a dump by completely squatting down, but they are not. And when this is an instance of, I believe, 2020, when the lockdown was happening. I had started my own gym, and I was bringing some of my friends. I was asking my friends to come over and train, right? So there was a friend, a childhood friend of mine, who is not so much into lifting. So I was trying to encourage them to come and lift. And this dude, I was asking him to do a squat. He couldn't do a squat. And I was asking him, why are you not able to squat? Because I was observing his movement, and instead of going down, his hips were moving back. And the first thing that I asked him was, do you use a western bathroom? He said yes. And that's because the natural movement of his pelvis is to go back, because he can't sit down directly. So if you are not able to sit down directly, you will feel pain in your knees and your elbows. In your knees and your ankles, only because those are not mobile enough. And those are not the only way to increase that mobility is to do that movement itself. So the more he will spend time into that position, the better he will feel, right? So I believe the first and foremost thing you should be focusing on in terms of your training, the carryover that you are getting out of the gym. Like for example, bodybuilders, what is the purpose of their training? To get as big as possible.
Yeah.
Because either to compete or else that gives them that mental satisfaction.
Yeah, that they're
Right.
big.
They're big, obviously. So that might be the perspective. Or else, if you're a competitive sport athlete, you might be training in that perspective. If you are someone who is trying to get that carryover outside the gym, for example, in terms of just lifting things off the floor, just feeling better, that might be a great thing to do. Because if you take a look at, I believe this was a survey or else a study that people that they did on the old population, if I'm not wrong. Because I brought it up earlier as well. In powerlifting there are age classes, and this last year, that the national that we went, we came across a old couple who was, I believe, in their 80s or in their 70s, and they were going to compete. And we asked them in which category were they going to compete from, where they were from, and they were from Chembur. And I was like, how come I have never seen you? Because most of the state competitions I have been there from the past couple of years at least, and I never came across them. So it was a shock for me, at least, to see them from Chembur, being from Mumbai, and competing there. So that was really fascinating. So yeah, coming back to the point, I believe that if old people start getting more active, start this movement of hip flexion, knee flexion, even if they're not able to, right? Like starting not just squatting 200 pounds or else 200 kgs, right? Just starting to bend down, starting to try to bend your knees, your ankles, try to get some movement in, and slowly progress over time. That is only going to make them
Hmm.
pain free, make them stronger, and make them live longer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I believe trying to focus on training in that perspective of getting your joints, your muscles, your entire body stronger is really going to help you live longer, live better, enjoy life more.
Yeah, yeah. My dad, he has an amazing ankle and hip mobility. Like he can just squat down and he can sit there and watch an entire movie. Like that's how much comfortable he is in that position.
Hmm.
But I am not that comfortable in that position at all. Like the moment that I squat down, I'm like, when can I get up? Like that's my state.
Right.
So because that's not my natural forte, I worked a lot on
Hmm.
my ankle mobility, like a little bit, and then I realized like what's the most comfortable position. Now I can go sit down there
Hmm.
comfortably, not watch a movie, but probably watch a
Right.
YouTube video and then come back up. My dad, he can just like his knees actually come a lot
Far
ahead of
ahead,
his
yeah.
foot. And then every time my dad hates squats because it's like you go down and then you need to come up, right? Like he was doing 90-degree squats.
Hmm.
I I actually tried training both of my parents. Like I wanted them to lift weight because they're in their, like my dad is in his 50s, my mom is in like late 40s. I'm like, now if you guys try to lift weights, like it's gonna really help you. Like now you at least have strength.
Right.
Like now you have a chance of getting better. Like utilize that. So my dad, I am like, you have such great mobility. Utilize that. Like go down, like sit and then come back up.
Hmm.
So now if he climbs stairs or if he gets down, he feels like a like slight knee pain. And his legs are very lean.
Hmm.
His legs are very lean. He has a
Hmm.
tummy, but everything else is lean.
Right.
So I'm like, if you keep doing this, probably like your knee pain will go.
Hmm.
And like they need to utilize that range of motion, right? Like people
Right.
who have that, like the entire thing. So I've been trying to get, like my dad lacks motivation, man. Like I tried so hard. I'm like, my dad, he'll watch a movie. We watched Pathan,
Hmm.
and then Shah Rukh Khan is like super ripped.
Hmm.
He's in his 50s.
Hmm.
My dad is like, chalo, from tomorrow I'll come to the gym. I'm like, as long as you say today and now, I won't believe you. And that tomorrow never comes.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that let me just ask you, does your dad have that belly that every dad has? No.
He is actually, like when you see him in a proper shirt and a
Mm-hmm.
pant, you wouldn't call him as someone who looks fat. Like
No.
you would,
Yeah.
he looks perfect,
Yeah.
but he just has a
That
slight
yeah.
belly. Like
Yeah.
he
That
has a belly in the front.
I believe that most Indian dads have that. Okay. And that's nothing to be afraid of, because that's only visceral fat. All right.
Mhm.
As people might know that there is a different kinds of fat that we have inside our body. One is subcutaneous fat that we measure for the body fat percentage, or else by pinching and seeing how much
Mhm.
body fat we have. That is on the above level of our that is above our muscle.
Mhm.
If you take a look at the visceral fat,
Mhm.
it is between your, or else in middle of your organs, right?
Yeah.
Which is one of the the one of the fat that might be used the most. So if your
Okay.
dad, or else if any other dads looking at this video, hearing this, start training, the first thing that they will notice is that their abdomen or their belly is going inside,
Yeah.
because all of that visceral fat is being used. It is not subcutaneous fat, it is
Yeah.
visceral fat,
Yeah.
which is why.
Yeah. My mom also, like my mom and my sister, they suffered from slip disc, like lower, like back problem, like proper back problem.
Mhm.
And one thing that even though physiotherapist like told my sister was like work on your core.
Right.
Like when your core is stronger,
Mhm.
like your back, everything else is safe.
Mhm.
So, and also core getting stronger and working on your abs are different things, right?
Right. Right.
So, like even there also core strength.
Hmm.
It's not you have visible abs. It's like is your core strong.
Right.
So there also strength is a factor. Like no matter where you go, I think you come to a point in your life if you're working out, you would definitely come to this point where you're like, now let me get stronger. Like in some or the other way, don't you
Right.
think?
Yes, regardless, I believe that everyone after a point of time they would stop seeing those gains,
Yeah.
those muscles. They
Yeah.
might seem that okay, I might have plateaued at this point of
Hmm.
time, but I haven't really reached my genetic potential, because in
Hmm.
order to reach your genetic potential, you really have to pay attention to your diet, your training, and to your recovery,
Okay.
which 90% of the people don't do. Which is
Mm-hmm.
why most of us won't really reach our genetic potential.
90%.
Yes, I believe that most of the people don't really do that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the gym goers, not the
Yeah. Yeah.
athletes.
Yeah. Definite. You when I used to go to the gym trainer, he was a ex bodybuilder, and of course he was on steroids, right?
Hmm.
And this was when I was in college, and that gym was close by, and I went there. That dude, he was like, if someone was too lean, and he would make everyone do bro split.
Hmm.
You're like today's biceps, do that, do this, do that, do this. Next
Right.
day triceps, do this, do that.
Hmm.
And if someone was too lean, he would
Hmm.
tell them like eat gulab jamun. It will like eat like
Right.
high
I
calorie
understood.
food.
Like high calorie food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like I was just scratching my head. I'm like, bro, what the heck are you talking about?
Right.
Like you're asking him to eat gulab jam, and like that dude, he took steroids, and now he's not competing, and he has a belly, but he has big arms.
Hmm.
He's not knowledgeable. Like he didn't
Hmm.
do any course. Like
Right.
people who take courses are also not like knowledgeable, but this guy, he didn't have anything. And when I saw the same people like who went to the gym, the gym people. 1 year later, they're still in the same physique. Like there isn't much difference that you'll be like, whoa, like this guy is changed.
Hmm.
Like they just plateaued
Hmm.
because they're not switching things up. They're not doing anything.
Right.
So not everyone who hits. First of all, out of this population, very few of them go to the gym.
Right.
And for the people who go to the gym, few of them work out like who have great training plans.
Right. Exactly.
And in that, very few people.
Pay attention to things apart from the training.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is diet and sleep.
Yes.
So how important are those? Like, see, I know like they are important, but you coming as a coach, that stands more credibility, right? So
Right.
that's why I want people to listen to that. Like,
Right. I believe that okay, so from a perspective of a coach, I can only talk about, athletes
hmm,
competing, right?
hmm,
If we talk about the general population, obviously eating good will be going to help you. Having more muscle mass, obviously not as a bodybuilder, but having more muscle mass relative to your body fat percentage
hmm,
is definitely going to be a green sign for your health as well, a green signal for your health as well, right?
yeah,
You don't really want to have much more body fat percentage
yeah,
and call yourself a power lifter, which most people do.
yeah,
We don't want that. We really want to see that you're eating with keeping your health in perspective.
yeah,
Now when we talk about the bodybuilding side of things, the people that really try to maximize their muscle mass and try to
hmm,
lower their body fat percentage as much as possible while using drugs as well.
hmm,
You must have heard that they don't use water, don't use
yeah,
salt, all of those things into the competition time. That is not really healthy for us as well
yeah,
in any
yeah,
way possible.
yeah,
Now, when we talk about powerlifting from a athlete's perspective, I believe that nutrition is
hmm,
probably the most important thing that you would pay attention to, and recovery apart from training.
okay,
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 training. Yes, obviously there is no like 50% training, 50% nutrition. There's 100% of all three, but the easiest part is the training, right?
hmm, yeah, yeah,
anyone
yeah, yeah,
anyone can go and do the given work, the given amount
yeah,
of weight, the sets and reps, but controlling your calories, controlling your cravings, controlling the time that you spend outside the gym, which is like 22 hours outside the gym that we spend.
yeah,
We have to control that environment as well.
yeah,
Like if we are in the zone for 2 hours into the gym,
yeah,
what are we like outside the zone?
yeah,
So that really matters as well. And I
yeah,
believe the real athlete, that's when the real athlete comes into play, because you need to have that mindset and that mentality that regardless of what cravings, what instant gratification I want right now, I would delay that so that I would perform better on
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
day I want to
Yeah.
perform
Yeah.
at.
Yeah. Also, on a scale like recovery, which is sleep, uh, and less stressful life, like recover part,
Hmm.
training at the gym, nutrition, eating healthy.
Hmm.
How would you rank these three things if you had to rank? Like, if you had to give like 1, 2, 3 more percentage extra for one thing, 1, 2, 3, which would you rank? Training, nutrition, recovery. How would you rank these three things?
This
Recovery being like general people taking care of their sleep, stuff like that.
this might be a shocker for most, but I would rank recovery the first, and I would even go to the lens of saying that recovery or else having 8 to 10 hours of sleep is much more powerful than taking steroids for the same person. All right,
Hmm.
which is saying like if you give person a steroid for some time, or else if you give them good recovery or else good amount of sleep each night for some time, the effect might be the same or else much more in the second case.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many people go to cold showers, ice baths, massages, or a chiropractic and all that stuff, and all these fancy things to trying to improve the recovery, so their muscles can get relaxed, they can lift more amount of weight, all of these things. But the most basic thing that you can focus on is trying to get as much sleep as possible. All right. So when we talk about sleep, I believe the most important thing that people should pay attention to is try to reduce their phone use before sleep, and try to limit their caffeine intake at
Hmm.
least 6 to 8 hours prior that sleep, because that crash into the sleep sorry they crash into the caffeine due to the caffeine in between the day might really affect how you sleep 8 to 10 hours after.
Hmm.
All right, so if you consume after afternoon coffee, or even late in the evening, there might be a early dip there, you might feel sleepy early into the evening, but by the time you are you really want to sleep 8 10 12 10 12 10 11 12 wherever that might be, you might not feel sleepy
Hmm.
again.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you really need to limit the amount of caffeine you're consuming prior to sleep, or else into entire day, and the amount of phone you're using as well.
Hmm.
So I
Light
believe
exposure to eye.
light exposure, basically blue light filter and all this stuff.
Hmm.
So I believe the ranking will be recovery first,
Hmm.
nutrition second,
Hmm.
and training third, because I believe anyone can do the training that is being given, because it is only what, not even 5% of your entire day, right,
Yeah.
or 10% of your entire day. You need to spend more time into those time zone like 22 23 hours outside the gym, and you need to control that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I I thought you would say this.
Yeah.
I thought you would say this. I think like yeah, like very very important things that you said right now. I think this people should start paying attention in this order, right?
Mhm.
Don't you think? If they want to get stronger or if they want to be healthy, they should also start in this order, right? Like
Right.
give priority to. I used to be very neurotic about workout in the sense where, if I don't work out, I would feel anxious.
Hmm.
And because in a way that I created that identity for myself, because I in lockdown, that's all I did, and I lost over 24-25 kgs, and people actually uh like identified me through that. So then I got super neurotic. So if I didn't work out that day, I would actually go to the gym at 10 o'clock, or like late at night, finish that and then come back sleep. So in this three order, I always prioritized workout first, because in my head, like mentally, you have certain associations with working out.
Hmm.
So I think probably rather than working late at night, maybe if I would have slept and then woke up early and went to the gym,
Hmm.
probably that would have been better. But I like that gave me anxiety of me not hitting the gym that
Hmm.
day. So like focusing in this order, to be very honest, it is very it will keep you sane.
Hmm. Right.
And knowing that this would actually help you, like if you are at the gym overtraining, or if you're not like even if you're paying attention to your nutrition, if you're not paying attention to your sleep, all the efforts is gone, right? Like you're
Hmm.
just in high stress mode all the time.
Right.
So
Right. when people are not really that much into the sport, like I'm talking about people who are non-athletes, sometimes what they do is that they make their gym their personality, or else they
Yeah.
look at it as a, you know I won't really say as a scapegoat, or else, but it will give them an outlet,
Yeah.
where they can go and kind of express themselves. But it overtakes to a certain point where all of those things that are outside the gym,
Yeah.
they keep that into the back burners only to adjust their time and the thing that they're going to do into the gym.
Yeah.
But I believe that is a phase as well, because after a point of time you will realize that yes, training is important, but the time you spend outside the gym as well
Yeah.
matters.
Personal life,
Yeah, personal
your
life and all
career.
those things. Yeah,
Yeah. As you're a student, like you don't have anything else to do, but when you
right.
grow, you
Right,
realize a
there are
lot of.
other responsibilities that you have
Yeah.
to come across,
Yeah.
and training sometimes take a
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. It becomes a part of your life. That's not your life. That's
Right,
not your life in entirety. There are other
like
things to your life, right?
like
This.
unless and until you are a
Mm,
complete athlete, you don't really have to
yeah.
you know
If that's not your living,
yeah.
then if you're doing something else for your living, then probably this should workout should help you be better at that and other
Yes,
aspects of your life, and that
yes.
shouldn't be a point of your life.
I believe one of the most important points in terms of not just application of the workout in your physique, but the best application that I've seen is in terms of your confidence that people come
Hmm.
across. Okay,
Yeah.
that they see that the progress that I have been able to make, I can do something. If I work hard enough, I'm able to achieve this progress, or else
Yeah.
make things happen.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
I believe that is a main motivator for people.
Yeah. When I come out of the gym, I'm much more confident. The reason being that I was nobody, and I was in a place where I was fat. I was i was I was not obese,
Hmm.
but I was so I had a very thick love handles. I
Hmm.
was 86 kgs.
Hmm.
So even now I'm like 80, but I'm like my physical appearance is very different as compared to what it was before. So I was into a point where I was not able to bench press a certain weight, probably like 30 kgs also.
Hmm.
And now to a point where I am right now, this is a metric that will tell me that, see, you were there and now you're here. Like if you can do that, there are other things in your life that you can do. It's like, if like you need to trust the process and you need to be dedicated to the process, and this behavior will help in other aspects of your
Right,
life.
exactly. I believe that transition that you see is very much evident,
Yeah.
because you were not able to do something 2 days ago
Yeah.
or else a week ago, but you are able to do that now,
Yeah.
and you are able to do that and sustain it over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Imagine you try to apply those same
Hmm.
mechanics or else those same mindset in things outside the gym, where you
Yeah.
spend not just 1 hour,
Yeah.
but let's say 6 hours at your craft,
Yeah.
whatever that might be,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just think about the exponential progress that you're going to make
Of
in the
course.
time to come.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And so before we end this podcast, I'd like to give few points to the audience from you. Right? What are the ways of getting stronger and tips for people to get stronger? Do you have any of them? Like at the gym, like lifting heavy, like what are do you have any tips for them?
Yeah, first of all, I believe that everyone going into the gym should really, if you are going to the gym, go into the gym with a purpose, and don't really go into the cardio machine, because it is not going to do you any good. The first exercise that any newbie might be given is like to hop onto the treadmill and do some cardio. Don't really do that. Go to the squat bar, or else just go to the Google and try to understand what squat, bench, and deadlift is. Try to really go into the meat and potatoes, the basic movements: squat, bench press, deadlift, rows, overhead press, any kind of movement which involves a hinge with your hips, a knee flexion, or else a squat, which involves using a pressing movement like your overhead press or else bench press, and a rowing movement. All of this 4 or 5 movements really encompasses all of the things that we require. Apart from that, what you can focus on is obviously choosing these exercises or else any of these movements, and trying to focus and grow on this from week to week, or else from a certain period of time, and compare that over the long period of time like a year or so. And don't forget, or else don't neglect your smaller muscles, and pay attention to getting them stronger as well.
Hmm.
I believe that might be the crux of all of those things that will make you a complete lifter in terms
Hmm.
of hypertrophy, strength. You might look good, and all of these things.
Yeah. So this is in terms of training. Pay attention to recovery.
Yes, I believe that in recovery part you can obviously sleep as much as possible. We have talked about the caffeine intake and the mobile use as well, or is the screen use as well. And in nutrition, I believe people should prioritize protein as much as possible, because Indian diets are not really reflective of high protein content or else even moderate protein content. So I believe adding something as simple as eggs, boiled eggs, whole eggs, and chicken should really help people. Uh, I don't
For veg, do you have any suggestions?
switch to non-veg. No, what I can say to people is that see, I'm not really a big component of soy protein, to be honest, because of the first of taste, and second because of the amino acid profile.
Okay.
I believe that even if soya can give you the protein that you need, even if it has the most amount of protein found in across all sources, like 52 grams in 100 grams of soya, for 52 grams of protein, something of this sort. But I believe that for better absorption and better digestion, you should move to more animal based protein. But yeah, if you are not able to, you can find better alternatives with supplements like whey protein, or else if you're vegan, you can try plant protein, pea protein, and the other types of
Yeah.
supplements they can come
Because
across.
I'm
Yeah.
a vegetarian, I rely solely on dairy products, like in the sense paneer
Mm-hmm.
and soya chunks,
Mm-hmm.
and like
But do you
now,
really enjoy the taste of soya chunks?
no, I make it interesting.
Okay. Okay. Then I can, yeah.
I make it interesting. Also, it's very purposeful eating.
Hmm.
So since I don't have any choice, I'm
Hmm.
like, let me just purpose. It's very cheap, bro. Like, so soya chunks,
It
like
is.
the price and the like
Hmm.
its price and the amount of protein that it is very cheap, right? So
Yes.
that, like, at least one meal I eat soya,
Hmm.
one meal paneer, and some for some snack, like probably cheese or like cheese toast, stuff like that I eat.
Okay.
But yeah, like focus majorly on protein is what you're saying in
Yes.
nutrition.
Yeah. And don't fall into the fad of having any kind of diets. Don't go on any diet.
Hmm.
Okay. There's a simple concept of calorie tracking and calorie counting that you should pay attention to. If you don't know anything, just take two scales, a small kitchen scale and a weighing scale. Start tracking whatever you're eating, and start tracking your body weight empty stomach right after you wake up, and continue doing this for at least 14 days. You would, and at the end of 14 days, take an average of the calories that you consume divided by 14. The sum of the calories you consumed in those 14 days, divided divide it by 14, you will get the average calories you consumed on a daily basis, and your body weight as well. Then you might that might give you a buffer, like these are your maintenance calories. And depending on your goal, like if you want to bulk, if you want to maintain the same weight, if you want to cut down, you can change the macros. Like if you want,
Hmm.
the macros are basically protein, carbohydrates and fats. If you want to gain more weight, maybe you can increase the calories of fat and carbs, and increase protein as well. If you want to cut down, you can increase protein and maybe balance out the calories for carbs and fats. But you should always try to prioritize protein, in my opinion.
Hmm.
One person does not never have enough protein or else too much protein, right? Unless you're a bodybuilder and you're purposely trying to get like 200 to 300 grams of protein a day, you don't really want that. Even if you start with like 1.8 to 2 grams per kg of your body weight, like if you are 80 kgs, so 150 to 160 grams of protein
Protein.
should be really good to improve your recovery. Make sure that you're not losing muscle mass on a daily basis and you're recovering for the workouts that you did. So this
Okay.
will keep in touch the anabolism process, the muscle protein synthesis that takes place from time to time. This will really,
Okay.
complete that cycle on a daily basis.
Okay.
So that covers our training part. So sorry, the nutrition
Nutrition
part.
part.
So training may pay attention to your compounds, recovery may pay attention to your sleep, and nutrition may pay attention to your protein.
And this would be like a basic structure that
Yes,
people can have.
people can start with. Yeah.
Right. And also, if people want to see your stuff,
Hmm.
like if they want to connect with you, or like, how do people connect with you on Instagram, or like, do you want to just give out your social handles for people?
Yeah, so if you want to follow me for more powerlifting related content, also in lifting in general, you can follow me on Instagram. My username is at the rate Vedant Pawnikar, VDANTPWNIKAR, and you can find me on YouTube as well. But I don't post as many videos. I have a couple of videos that I posted, during the lockdown. But I'm trying to make some new content as well. Right now, what isn't making in terms of the team is that we are trying to get in more coaches under us so that they will be making content for us. So it's their turn now, right now.
Right.
So yeah, I will suggest to check out the Strength Mob, which is our team, and I would really recommend to check out Aniket Kamble and Devendra Khure. Both of them are good coaches and powerlifters and great athletes as well. So watch them out in the future.
Right. So I will be providing the links to all of the stuff in the description so that it's easier for people to reach you.
Yeah.
Vedant, thank you so much for this, man.
Thank you
Like,
for having me
I
on.
really had a blast. I am genuinely telling you, I really had such a great time. And also the content that you're giving out and all the profound nuggets that you're giving out. I hope that like people take it seriously because it's gonna help them a lot. So thank
Yeah.
you, man. Thank
Thank you
you.
for having me. Yeah, and subscribe to his guys' channel and like, share, subscribe, and what is left? Comment down below what thing you want to see next, and who might be the next guest.
So next,
Any spoilers?
currently I'm still working with people. Maybe Shivi might be on. Like, we're still working out a time. Shivi
Mhm.
Arora, we might have her back, and we're still
For
figuring
a
out
part
time.
2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the second time. And this podcast is available in video format on YouTube. And if you just want to hear to us talk, then head over to Spotify, Geo7, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Ghana.
Yeah.
If I missed
And
out
if you
any.
guys want to hear something more, if you want to guys see us in future as well, just let us know what topics you want
Yeah.
us to talk about.
Yes. I would love to have you back again. And if there are any specific things that you want me to ask Vedant next time he's here, then you can also provide that in the comments below. So yeah, man, I would
Yes.
love to have you back
Thank
again
you.
sometime.
Sure.
So yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Take care, everybody.
A Sankarshan Joshi trip.